All right. Well, thank y'all for coming. And many of you have already seen Shirley present for us at the Senior Center, but since we can't have her there, I think we always try to get you to come sometime in September for National Preparedness Month.
Yeah.
But we have Shirley with, correct me if I say it wrong, but it's Caldwell County REACT. Is that correct? Okay. And I'm going to let her really introduce herself because she's going to be a lot better at it than me and tell you what she's going to be talking about. And I'm actually going to spotlight you. So while you're talking, they'll see you, and then you can go right ahead and take over.
Okay, thank you, April. Good to see you all again. I think I know everybody who's checked in so far. As April said, I'm a member of Caldwell County REACT, as is Frank Gordon, who's here with us today. It's nice to see you, Frank. And I've been involved with Caldwell County CERT, which is Community Emergency Response Team, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. I'm retired. I'll be 70 in 2 months, and it's like, ooh. But better than the alternative. I'm a retired human resources director and personnel investigator, and did a lot of training and stuff. So, but I wanted to talk to you today about some of the things we've been facing this year. And April asked me, because September is always National Disaster Preparedness Month. This is a good subject for us to kind of remind ourselves things to do and not do during disasters, and ways we can hopefully save ourselves and our families. So I have a few slides, not too many, but I really encourage all of you to discuss and help me. I've got some questions that I'll be asking you, and would like for you to participate. So with that, any questions before we get started? All right, then I'm going to share screen now. And I love this picture. 2020, the year of mayhem. Doesn't that feel like it? And as I was talking about, I'm a member of the CERT Community Emergency Response Team, which to be a CERT member, you have to have received the basic CERT training, which Frank and I are both certified instructors for that, as well as several of our other members. And that is a 20, 21 hour training program. And we do other community projects as well, as you're all aware of. And we do a lot of community education and help Caldwell County Emergency Management when we're called out to assist. And our philosophy is we first help ourselves and our families, then our neighbors, and then our community in case of disasters. Okay, I'm sure you've all seen this before but it's a good reminder of just some of our local hazards in Caldwell County, because we sit here and think, you know, we've got it pretty good. We're not like California, we're not burning right now, but we have had, we've had fires, we've had floods, and did any of you feel the earthquake earlier a few weeks ago?
Yes.
Yes.
That was scary, but I knew that I wasn't surprised because, you know, as I've told you before, we have a fault that runs right through our county and around Grandfather Mountain, and so there are a lot of faults through this area. And were any of you around in the year of Hugo? when Hurricane Hugo hit here? April, you're nodding your head.
Yep.
What did you experience?
Honestly, I was pretty young when it hit, but I can remember we were standing in the basement door, probably not the best plan that we had, watching the trees fall in my grandmother's front driveway.
Ooh.
We just watched, she had a whole row of pine trees and they just fell over one by one. It was kind of a freaky sight, but yeah, we were standing out there watching it, which was probably not a good plan.
Wow. Anybody else? Well, I remember hearing go ahead, I'm sorry.
We had a brick fireplace in our house, and the wind was blowing the water straight at it, and from inside you could see the water coming, seeping through the brick. And then I remember when the eye came over, we all went out on the deck, and the silence was just, it was quieter than when we have a snowfall and there's nobody on the roads. It was so quiet, and the smell of pine in the air was, it was so strong. It was odd.
Wow. And I guess I hadn't heard that before about the eye coming over. I just kind of assumed it was maybe kind of breaking up by then, but wow. And one of the things that scares me a lot are our wildfires, which we have experienced here not too many years ago. And Frank, were you involved in any of that, in working any of those fires?
No, I wasn't. I was in a different area at that time.
Okay, but I guess one reason it scares me is because, well, I lived in Arizona for 30 years and we were always fearful of wildfires in Arizona, which hit there frequently. But here I'm up on top of a hilltop outside of town. I'm not in town. And we're surrounded by nothing but woods. We're at our driveway is the end of a road and we're just surrounded by woods. And so that has kind of frightened us, but we've taken measures to mitigate the danger as many things that's in our control as possible. And of course, we've all experienced the ice storms and snowstorms. And what's one of the biggest problems of some of these disasters, even if you're not directly impacted, like a tornado or the ice storms? What's one of the consequences?
Power loss.
And what does that impact, Irv?
Oh, just about everything. Heat, lights, internet.
It can impact being able to fill your gas tank up. Go to the store. I mean, everything is automated now at the stores. As I know when my parents, who have lived in Alabama, northeast Alabama for many years, when the tornadoes hit Alabama so hard and just got a swath, it was a terrible set of tornadoes. They didn't get hit directly, but I ended up driving over there with supplies and a bunch of stuff to help them because they had no phones, no power, and the stores were all closed. You know, they couldn't go to Walmart because there's no power, so Walmart, their food was going bad and couldn't run cash registers and stuff. So so it really does, it's kind of important to know what kind of dangers may hit your community, but it's also important to know that some things just you can prepare for, and it doesn't matter what kind of disaster it is. Some of the things you're going to have to deal with, like power loss, and what are you going to do if it's in the winter and you like us, we have heat pumps for our heat, but what do we do if the electric's out? And so you have to be aware of that. And let's, come on. There we go. What are some of the serious events that are happening nationwide this year? What's making 2020 mayhem?
Pandemic.
Anybody?
Election.
Obviously, pandemic, election, all kind of the same thing. What
Civil
else?
disorder.
Absolutely, the civil disorder. What else? What else have we seen? Or are
Shutting down because of the pandemic.
Yeah, the collapse of the economy and the loss of jobs and loss of services and what else? What's going on right now on the West Coast?
It's burning up.
Some of the worst more fires than they've experienced before. Homes burning. We had a hurricane in Louisiana. I mean, it's just on and on. It's always something. And I guess that's why we call it, the year of mayhem. But, thank God and praise the Lord that we are, so far, most of us are safe here, and hopefully we're taking care of ourselves and our families. For pandemics, some just basic information, and by now you've all heard this, but I'm interested, in the next slide I'll be asking you some questions, but first of all is always make sure you have enough food and medications in case you're quarantined, because one of the things quarantine used to mean is if you were suffering from a disease, a communicable disease, you would be quarantined. Now you can be quarantined even if you don't have it. And so just maybe if you've been exposed but haven't shown it, so you may be quarantined. So you need to make sure you have enough supplies at least for a quarantine, and a way to have clean water. And of course, sanitation and hygiene. We've heard this up the kazoo. Social distancing. Somebody define that for me. What does that mean?
Well, they define it as being about 6 feet apart.
Which I've also read several times that that's not nearly enough, but what are you going to do? And also is to avoid being indoors, especially in large groups of people, that it helps to be outside. The one thing I was talking to, I don't know, it was a couple of people before class started, was about face mask use. And tell me about some of the things you've seen out in public with people wearing face masks and not doing it right.
Having them down around their chin.
Yep, down around their chin. Or what, go ahead.
So under their nose.
I've seen even officials and police officers and other people wearing it under their nose. And here's one we have. Okay. need to make sure it's tight around your nose, that as little air as you can manage gets out. But people will, I've seen people in the stores who are cashiers will be wearing their mask, and then when they're talking to a customer, they'll pull it down. When they're close to the customer and put, no, don't do that. And a mask may not be foolproof. And especially if it's not an N95 mask. And N95 masks are more difficult to come up, to find nowadays, just because they're used for other things. This is an N95 mask, by the way, because one of the things we did in our preparations was have a box of, in fact, more than one, a box of N95 masks. And so, and my daughter and her husband live in New York City with their 2-year-old daughter. And they, guess what they were short of this spring when the thing hit?
Toilet paper.
They could not get toilet paper. They couldn't get masks. They were short of several things. We sent it to them. We sent a big care box full of that stuff with it, because we had plenty. And as it turned out, at the end of February, my daughter had COVID. She didn't know it at the time, nor did she had to go to the emergency room because she was so ill. And she was diagnosed with pneumonia, and it was a bacterial pneumonia that had been caused, but the underlying disease was some, quote, weird virus that they didn't know what it was. And so this was the end of February before it really was being diagnosed, even in New York City. And so they gave her some heavy duty antibiotics, which knocked out the pneumonia, and she had pericarditis. And anyway, so she went home, and later, it was a few months later, she was tested and for antibodies, and she tested positive, as did her family, including her 2-year-old daughter. But her husband and daughter were not, they were asymptomatic. And so it's not something to play around with. We can be as careful, we need to be as careful as we can. And of course, I'm sure you all have plenty of sanitizers. We have the bottles, and we keep some of these in our packs and in our vehicles. And so avoid touching your face and keep those hands washed. Did you know when you're washing your hands, how long you're supposed to wash them? Anybody?
All the way through. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday twice. It's 20 seconds. I've timed it. But another one that I've actually I started using it when I was raising chickens, and I was washing my hands every time I'd been out back in the backyard where the chickens were, and needed 20 seconds to wash my hands, is the Lord's Prayer. If you say the Lord's Prayer, it takes 20 seconds. And so that's, I figure, okay, if I'm going to wash my hands 5 or 10 times a day, you might as well be saying the Lord's Prayer. It's not going to hurt. So happy birthday twice, or the Lord's Prayer. I want to find out, what are some things you all do differently because of COVID? It could be in any of those any of these categories: sanitation and hygiene, social or family, medical health, spiritual, shopping. What are you doing differently? And let's kind of go around the room. And I'm going to turn off screen share and pull up the screen. So, and I'm going to look at gallery view. Okay, and I'm just going to start with my screen. Let's start with April.
I used to very rarely use hand sanitizer. I always preferred just to wash my hands, but I do now have a supply of hand sanitizer all over the place. And also, I have discovered that I never need to go inside of a Walmart again because I use Walmart pickup.
Good idea. Yeah, and we order a lot of stuff online, even more than what we used to, which we've always used a lot of online ordering. But now, anything that we can order online, even from Walmart, that's...
Amazon loves me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We really should have bought stock in Amazon a long time ago. Okay. What else? Ingrid, what about you?
Let's see. We have not been to a grocery store since February. We pick up at Walmart, so that's totally new. I have my medications delivered through the mail, and that's pretty much it. As far as cleaning or hand sanitizer, I guess we're a little more careful, but no more than like flu season. So.
Okay. What about anything social or family, anything you're doing differently?
You can't go to church. You can't have social activities, groups. Senior center isn't open. That's probably affecting a lot of older people who rely on this.
Yeah. Well, I know that meetings I used to go to, like our REACT, Caldwell County REACT meetings. I belong to the Daughters of the American Revolution local chapter here. Everything now is either on Zoom or WebEx, which is a similar program. So, you know, we're just not, there's not the in-person contact. Vicki, what about you? Anything? What are you and your family, if anything, doing differently?
Well, we're not getting on a plane.
I know. Yeah, had 2 trips I've had to cancel for that.
Yep. Christmas is canceled.
Yeah, our family reunion.
Well, in California anyway.
Yeah. Oh man, absolutely.
And ordering a lot online.
Yeah. Yeah, we're probably the only people we see are the delivery drivers. You know, it's just. Frank, what about you? What are you doing differently?
Well, don't go to town quite as much as I used to. Don't do as much shopping in the stores and that kind of thing. We still go to the grocery store, and if we need to go to Walmart, we'll go to Walmart. We just wear our masks and try to keep social distance. And at church, we and don't meet inside the building. We meet in the parking lot and have a good time there. And that's been kind of nice. And like you mentioned, I'm in the amateur radio club here in Lenore, and we just had a WebEx meeting last night for our monthly meeting. Other radio club I'm in is Western Piedmont out of Morganton, and we just meet on radio. Just having that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's talk on the radio because that's what amateur radio people do. And I was glad that REACT finally did a Zoom meeting for their monthly meeting last month. So don't see family. We don't get to see our children and grandchildren but a couple of times a year. Usually that's Christmas and the 4th of July. And so 4th of July, we didn't see them. Yeah. We've been kind of staying home quite a bit and getting stuff done around the house. And we've had a good time, but, you know, just hadn't been out and seen a lot of folks like we would normally do. So, and I was kind of surprised when there was a run on toilet paper. You know, I mean, who doesn't? Well, I guess I'm a preparedness person, and I had toilet paper.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're just things you need to have around the house, and you know, I guess I'm an old person, and you know, I'm not one of these just in time people who think, okay, I'll let it run out and then I'll go to the store. You know, no, doesn't work that way. So that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, the toilet paper story, I may have told you all this before, but I guess one thing that broke me of that was when it was one Christmas close to 40 years ago, when we were living in Pennsylvania then, but my husband's parents and his brother and sister came to our house for Christmas. And I had, my daughter was like 1.5 years old then. And so Christmas Day, and I had stocked up on toilet paper. What was my idea then of stocking up, which was, you know, those people use a lot of toilet paper. And guess what happened? We ran out of toilet paper on Christmas Day. And, you know, out in the area where we were, kind of in a rural area, there just was nothing. It was just a terrible time. We laughed about that with his parents and until they passed. I mean, it was just a family story, but I've never run out of toilet paper since then. But okay, Mary L, are you with us?
I'm with you. Well, I complain about the masks because I'm having a carbon dioxide buildup in my blood, and it's worse. So I don't wear the mask unless I absolutely have to if I'm going out. And we do have a group from the senior center that we play euchre on Thursdays. That was our time at the senior center, and we play it online. So that's kind of fun some days, depending on if you're winning or losing. I wish there was a tournament style where we could have, but Pittsburgh doesn't have it, you know, that we could have more of the people because we're limited to 4 per table. So anyway, I've just been trying to keep busy. I'm so bored though, I'm even reading the classified ads in the newspaper and all the, you know, executor and the foreclosures. It's bad. And I thought 2020 was related to vision. I didn't know 2020 was related to mayhem.
Yeah, well, welcome to this year. And I was kind of looking forward to 2020. It's such a nice symmetrical, you know, it's 2020. That was so much better than 2019. I don't know. I just like that number. And it's like, silly me. But anything that you're doing, Mary, how are you handling like, you know, groceries and you know, medicines, things like that?
Yeah, well, my medicines have been shipped to me for years.
Yeah.
Groceries, it depends. Sometimes I'll go with a friend. Sometimes I'll ask somebody to pick me something up. It just depends. I don't like Walmart in Lenore. I'd rather go to the one down in Hudson, which is just a neighborhood market.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Mary Gordon.
Hey.
Hi.
Well, Frank and I share life together, and so we've actually done really well. We're blessed to be out in the country and have woods around us. Before it got too hot and too many ticks, we spent a lot of time just in the woods, you know, getting firewood or just clearing woods. It has changed our life, and like he said, that we didn't get to see our family in July. I'm pondering what Christmas might be like. But we have done a lot more Zooms. We've done Zooms, and with our church, we've started a Bible study Zoom. And starting this Sunday, I'm sort of organizing a safety team for our church, just beginning to look at the process of when we go back inside to worship. Right now, it's just great because we're outside, we can distance, people bring their dogs, it's just fun, wear a mask, but we have quite a bit of protocol from our conference denomination, pages and pages of things to do. And so it's going to affect even it's going to affect our worship service and what we do, how we come in, how we go out, what you can touch, what you can't. And of course, it's affected communion already, but that's been worked with. So it's just a whole new world. Mm-hmm. And things that we had to cancel our homecoming for our church, and there are just many things that are different, but we've also had a good spirit about us. And so I'm feeling really blessed. It's just been different. And I do feel like that Frank has been able to accomplish a tremendous amount of things since he hasn't been, really able to go out as much. So he's really focused in and been very productive.
Good for you, Frank.
Yeah.
If you run out of honeydew items, I've got a few left over here.
My list is plenty long, I'll tell you.
He's going to have to live to be a very old man to finish his list.
Oh, I know that feeling. Thank you, Mary. Carol, anything that you're doing differently or has impacted any parts of your life at all?
Well, I think my husband's not well, and I think going to the doctor, we had to be in the emergency room a couple of weeks ago, and he had to have surgery, and so that has changed because he had to have the rapid test for the virus, and they did let me go in with him.
Oh, that's good.
And but going to that one doctor will not let me go in, so I wait in the parking lot and in the car, and the doctor calls me when he sees Richard to tell me what's going on. So that's been a big change.
That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. That's true. And sorry about the problems your husband's experiencing. I know it's that would be stressful anytime, but adding it on to.
Well, and they've changed at the hospital. They did let me go in the emergency room, and they brought me a bed in. We had to spend the whole night there. They never had a room, and they brought in a bed for me to spend the night with him, which a couple of weeks ago, that was not allowed. So that was good that I got to stay. The next one, they took him to surgery, but he's doing much, much better.
Oh, good. Glad to hear that. Good point. Irv, what about you?
What was the question again?
What has changed for you because of the COVID-19? What are you doing differently, whether it be social, medical? What's going on different in your life?
Well, you can't go to church because they're closed it because the population is older. It's kind of put a damper on American Legion activities because of, again, the aged population. Can't go check on my house in Connecticut because they might not let me out if I go up there. And let's see, with all the rain, I'm going nuts mowing the lawn. So, but I go out to the store, spend time outside the yard. You have smaller groups of people together.
Are any of you doing anything differently with when you bring things into your home, whether it be items that are delivered, when you bring stuff in from the grocery store? Because I found that's something what we do differently. Is anybody doing anything before when you're bringing things into your home from outside?
Yeah, I'm using more alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Is that drinking?
It ought to be.
Well, one of the things we did was we keep a spray bottle of water and alcohol. It has to be at least 70%. And we spray, you know, like if Irv goes to the grocery store, when he brings it in, we have one place where we bring it. And depending on how much, whether we set up a folding table or a chair or something, he brings it in, and then I pull it out and spray everything that can be sprayed. If it's a fresh produce or something, I wash it good and rinse it well, and get rid of as much outer packaging as we can, and we're just kind of careful what we do with things, at least until they've had time to set. And we don't, in boxes, you know, FedEx or UPS comes. What our system is we have a big wheelbarrow, and we roll it out to the truck until he or she is digging through their boxes and gets our order. Then they put it in the wheelbarrow, and we're back a ways, and then we wheel the wheelbarrow around, and then put the boxes someplace where we can let them set out for a day or two, or however, unless it's something that we need to take out, like if medication came or something, we'd take it out and sanitize it. But we're just kind of careful. Some of the stuff we do, I think I'll probably continue doing it. It's not that big a deal, and especially during flu season. What else? Anybody doing anything else that's different? Some of you, I said, we're on Zoom a lot. I'll tell you, that's one of the positive things. Not that I prefer Zoom to in person, but like my two best friends, we all used to live in Arizona. And then Pauline moved to Grand Junction, Colorado, and then I moved out here, and our other friend is in Phoenix. And so, but now every Friday we have happy hour on Zoom. And for 2 hours, we just chat and have a good time, and we wouldn't have done that otherwise. And so that's been nice. And
I haven't had food from a restaurant since February.
No,
I've cooked everything we've ate.
Good point. Yeah, you're right. We haven't either. And we're waiting we want to, my daughter and her family moved out of Brooklyn. They were in Park Slope, Brooklyn in an apartment, and they moved out because they were both working from home. And so they didn't have to live in the city. And so in a high-rise apartment, 2-bedroom, that they were spending several $1,000s a month in rent for, I hate New York. Well, they bought a house about 2 hours north of the city, 2.5 hours north of the city, and now have a half-acre big yard and a very small little hamlet village. It has like one stoplight. And, so we plan on going and visiting them and taking some things up to them. But with New York City and New York and some of the others, New Jersey and I think Connecticut, they have some limits on people traveling from North Carolina, and you've got to, so we'll wait until that is lifted. But it's
He has a border patrol that'll stop you if you have an out of state.
I'm sure it's also part of their attempt to increase their revenues too. It's like, oh, we can stop these people and fine them. But anyway,
are open and they have limited capacity, but it really feels pretty good when you go out to a restaurant and eat. When you haven't done it for a while.
Yeah, but we didn't eat out a lot even before, because we cook a lot at home, especially now with the garden producing so much. It's like, all right, how many different ways can we fix green beans and eggplant and tomatoes? But one thing that my husband Irv has been doing is every, once or twice a week, he takes a load of stuff to the food bank here in town, Yoke Fellows. And so he's been taking a lot of his produce there. And we have a friend who's a widow who lives at the foot of our hill. And she has a lot of family around, her mother and some of her grown children are around, but he drops off a lot of stuff to her too. So we're sharing, and that feels good. And but it's a test, and just reach out for help if you need it, and that's one good thing I know the senior center is good for. And I'm going to go back to share screen. Okay, tornadoes. That's something that we have suffered here in this county. And just some reminders to make sure you go what's the best place to go to in a tornado if you have the option?
Basement.
Basement. Does anyone besides me have a basement?
Yeah.
We do.
Good. And in Arizona, nobody had basements. They didn't exist. They don't exist in Arizona. But the basements are the best place to go, but otherwise go to an interior safe area on the lowest floor. And try to cover up with something. If you're in a manufactured home or a trailer, get out if you have, because they just cannot stand they don't offer any protection. And the scariest thing is if there's no shelter available. And what do you think about that? What would you be doing if you're driving down the road and a tornado's coming at you?
Take a
Very
picture.
good.
Go ahead, Mary.
I said take a picture of it.
Sell it and hopefully make some money to pay for your car. But Irv, what were you saying?
I say go a different way.
If you can, certainly. Try to go perpendicular. Don't try to outrun it. Go and
I'd get in a ditch.
get in a ditch. One place you do not want to go is an underpass. Don't think that, if I'll go in this underpass and I'll be safe. It's one thing the experts, the emergency management people tell you, do not go into an underpass. Frank, you want to tell them why?
Well, the wind causes a vortex under there, and it can really mess things up.
Yep, and that means it can mess you up. Don't go, yeah.
Sure,
So that's not shelter.
Yeah, get
Pardon?
out of the vehicle and in a ditch if you can.
Yeah. Yeah, a vehicle is not the best place to be. But one of the things that I'm going to remind you again, if you haven't, I know I've told you all this before, has everyone signed up for Code Red?
yes.
Yep.
If anybody has not signed up for Code Red, do it.
But they
It can
didn't
save your
call.
life.
They did not call when earthquake tremors were here.
Oh, well, no, because that's not predictable. I mean, when the earthquake hit us, the call would have been after the tremor.
Well, at least I would have known what it was then, not walking outside to see if a tree fell on the house. So when that wasn't in, thinking maybe something happened in the basement, walked down through the basement, and that wasn't it. And so then I figured I must have some type of a critter in the attic. And it wasn't until later.
I hadn't thought of that, yeah, because we kind of knew immediately what it was. We were just sitting in the family room and it's like, okay, that's an earthquake. We knew what that, it hit us strong enough up north here that we knew exactly what that was. But otherwise, code red is good for storms, severe storms coming through, or if a tornado warning is coming, is through your area. Because in the when we had those 2 tornadoes, I think it was in 1 October, I can't remember what year that was now, but there were some people whose lives were saved because of code red and knew to get out. But you can sign up or tell your friends and family to do it. Just go to the website, Caldwell County, North Carolina. There's Caldwell County in Texas that if you just do a search, you might end up with a Texas. But Caldwell County, North Carolina website, and there's a button up at the top that that you can push near that just shows code red, and there's one at the bottom of the page that says code red. You can click on one of those buttons and it's real easy to sign up. And there's a couple of things that I haven't given you these links before when I've taught these classes. These were a couple of good ones that we found recently that you might want to try out. Now, April has a PDF of my slides that she can send you or give you a hard copy. So you don't need to be writing all of this down. But the electrical co-ops, of which Blue Ridge is a member, there's some decent information here at this website that they've put out, especially for power outages and what to do and not do. And then chronic disease and uncertain times from the National Institute of Health. It's another good link, especially if you or your loved ones have chronic illness, but you may want to check those out. And okay.
Shirley, I've had a question, and it has
sure.
Been, what corner of the basement do you go to?
I've heard a couple of different things, but we always went to the southwest corner.
Okay, that's what I thought it was, because the storm's usually coming from that direction.
Yeah,
it would blow over first before something would happen.
Yeah, but something else that you should consider, depending on what's in the southwest corner in your basement, is it reinforced? Like in ours, when I was growing up in Indiana, northern Indiana, we had tornado warnings all the time. And we would go into that, it was a small bathroom that had been built in that basement. So it was small, reinforced, and had no windows. And that's also something to look for, is something where you're not exposed to windows and that sort of thing. Does anybody else have any suggestions on that?
Just to reiterate, you don't want to go in a corner where there's windows or doors. Mm-hmm. Preferably completely underground would give more protection. So keep that in mind as well.
Good question, Mary. Any other questions, comments, any questions you have about this, because this is how we're learning. This is new to all of us. And it can be frightening. Like I said, this has been the year of mayhem. It's like if it's look what's happening all over the country. And don't want you to be afraid. Be prepared. Don't be afraid. And if you have any questions about what you can do to be prepared, like one of the things that we've talked about in other classes is, like, don't use candles if your power is out. And some options, you've seen my little, I think you've seen my little light before. Love this little LED. That works so much better than a candle, and it's not dangerous. And recently I bought one of these. Now this is kind of cool. It's a solar light. You have to open it up so air gets inside so you can open it. And you can, it's low and then flash. And it's small, obviously lightweight. And we just keep a couple of these in a windowsill so it's always charged. And of course, my old standby, which we have at least half a dozen of these or more around. I've got one in my purse. We have 2 or 3 in the truck. We've got some at home. And these little headlights, they're awesome. I mean, we use these when the power's not out, because if you have to go outside or looking for something under a dark cabinet or, it's whatever. But so don't use candles. People's places burn down because of that. And make sure you have a battery operated radio, just something basic like that. Some things we've learned because, well, my daughter living in New York City, she went to school there and stayed there. She was there she was there 19 years ago. For 9/11, she saw the second plane hit a second tower, and ended up having to walk from North Manhattan all the way back to Brooklyn because the subways, they shut all the subways down, and then she was there for the regional power outage when all the electric went out, and so Irv had sent her, one of those little headlamps to keep in her purse, which came in handy. And
Superstorm Sandy, she was probably
that. Excuse me. Superstorm Sandy, what, Frank?
She was probably there for that.
Yeah. Yep, she was. But the place in Brooklyn where she was just on enough of a rise that all of her friends came to their apartment for a Sandy party. But have any of you have friends or family who've been in Florida during the hurricanes?
I've been in Florida during a hurricane. We had a condo there, and it was the last week of October, the first part of November, and we only had to evacuate once. And that was the end of hurricane season. But don't get on 270 or on 75 to go north because everybody's on it. You can't get out there.
Well, and that's, I really encourage people that if there's an evacuation order, whether it's because of fires, flooding, hurricanes, pay attention. Because if you don't evacuate and the worst happens, then you will be putting the first responders in danger trying to come and save you. Don't become part of the problem, be part of the solution. And that's what we encourage in CERT. But any other problems you're having or questions? Anything to do with this, or it could be, you know, anything CERT related or preparedness, what you should or shouldn't have. What do you do if the power goes out and you've got a freezer and refrigerator full of food?
Don't open it.
Don't open it. And what else did you do with it? Certainly minimize opening and closing it, because you're just letting it all out.
Generator.
Generator certainly helps. My daughter and her husband bought their first house, and guess what? The first thing they needed? A generator, because their power went out for about 3 days. And so now they had to learn how to use a generator. But one thing you can do in preparation is, if you have any empty space in your freezer, store water. Perfect way to have extra water, and the ice will keep your freezer cold longer. And you could always even move it into the refrigerator to help keep your refrigerator cold. But if you have any spare room in your freezer, freeze water and have some ice. Serves two purposes. And how long should you keep food that has been unrefrigerated?
It depends on what it is. Potato chips you can keep a long time. You mean like food that should be in the freezer?
Refrigerated food or freezer food.
Ice cream, eat it right away.
Once food is no longer chilled, and we're talking at least, 40 degrees or lower, about 2 hours for anything that may spoil, especially things like raw meat or, the freezer obviously will keep longer, it being frozen. But if you are suspicious of anything or suspect something may not, has been unrefrigerated for too long, throw it out. Don't get sick because of it. One thing that I know people have done in disaster areas, like I had a friend who lived in Homestead when hurricanes hit there. The neighbors all got together and had a big cookout on their gas grills and cooked all of their food and had a big picnic party, because once it's cooked, it keeps better. But
and of course, if it's a power outage because of a winter storm, take the stuff outside.
Yes, amen.
Don't lose it. To lose your frozen food or your refrigerator food because of a winter storm, take it outside. Put it in the cooler in the car or something.
A good point. And that's like I've read where in emergency centers they'll get, every time there is an event and there's power outage, somebody always calls and they can't open their canned food because their electric can opener doesn't work. It's like, but good point. Well, love seeing you all again, and I hope next time we'll be all together and that we get through this with a good sense of humor and healthy. So, and if you have any questions, April certainly has my email address. I'm always willing to chat with you, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. And appreciate Frank and Mary joining us today and sharing your expertise. So with that, April, anything else?
No, but thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. It was great information, and I really enjoyed kind of hearing about what everybody's doing differently. We've been doing this for months now, but it's not really something we've talked about in such detail. So it's nice to hear kind of what people are doing. And if you want a copy of the slides, just let me know, and we'll be glad to print those or email those to you.
Well, thank you all, and see you sometime, hopefully next year, for another presentation. And like I said, stay healthy, and it's nice being with you again. Thanks, April.
Thanks,
Thank
Shirley.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Say hi to Irv.
I will.